If you're new to watches, you've likely been looking for help in choosing the right watch or the right watches even. You've likely seen your fair share of perfect 3-watch collection videos. And I'm not entirely sure how 3 watches is the perfect number. I'm over 40 watches by now and I haven't achieved perfection yet. But that's not the point. The point is, if we assume that 3 watches can be perfect, there are just so many ways of approaching the 3-watch collection. There's the beta, the daily, the special occasion 3-watch collection. There's the tool watch, dress watch, and work watch collection. There are so many variations of the 3-watch collection. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Is there a perfect approach? And if so, what is it? I'm aiming for a video that will replace the need for all those other best 3-watch collection videos, where you can, at the end of the day, make up your own mind. We'll see how it goes. Let's dive in. Cheap, affordable, luxury. Option 1 is the 3-watch collection with a cheaper watch, a good watch, and a luxury watch. This is something like a Tissot PRX as the cheaper watch, maybe an Omega Speedmaster as the good watch, and the Jaeger LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin as your luxury watch. I really appreciate this approach for a lot of reasons. Typically, most collection options stick in a certain price range for the watch, out of a logic that people would rather buy 3 watches that are all in their price range than have options that are outside of their price range. It's especially the most expensive ones that they don't make sense. If you can't afford an expensive watch, then why are we going to look at a 3-watch collection with an expensive watch in there? So if you're looking for a PRX, the assumption is that you likely can't afford the JLC Master Thin or don't want to spend the money on it. But for me, the strength of this approach is that you see how good watches don't all have to be expensive. Just because you could afford 3 $15,000 watches, you aren't forced to close your eyes to good-looking, interesting, well-designed watches at $600 or $700. It's a 3-watch collection that forces you to be open to all price ranges, and you'll learn to appreciate what the strengths of the different price ranges are. It's a down-to-earth approach as far as I'm concerned, because it's keeping it real, and to me, it's the one that speaks to a potential enthusiast that might in the future add to their collection. There's no snobbery to this collection. Any watch can be good regardless of the price. It also doesn't limit you to any particular style. It's more about appreciating the differences. It's for the person who can eat at a Michelin restaurant, but also savor the experience of a phenomenal food truck taco. It's not a perfect collection though, because a 3-watch collection doesn't necessarily have any emphasis on consistency in aesthetic. This isn't a collection that focuses on the style of watch you might like, but just options. And it's, like I said, not a great model for people that are on a more limited budget. You should also have a 3-watch YouTuber collection. And if you think my content is worth it, please click the subscribe button so my channel becomes part of your YouTube watch collection. It's hugely appreciated, and it also tells me a ton about what works in terms of content. Thanks. Then we've got the dress, the sports, and the chrono. It can also be the dress and the diver and the chrono. It's variations on a theme. What we've got here is a collection route that emphasizes situational versatility and exposure to the broadest spectrum of watch types. When I say versatility, I mean that. Dress watches are for formal settings, sports and divers are for regular day-to-day use, and they may be also a business casual office type setting, and also when you're on vacation or out for a weekend. Finally, you've got the chrono, which, all things being equal, is a little bit more of a statement piece. It's the collection where you get yourself a Nomos Orion, a Rolex Submariner, and a Tag Heuer Glassbox, or a Baltic MR01, a Christopher Ward Lumiere, and a Hanhart 417. What I like about this model is the exposure to different types of watches. You're not stuck with 3 divers or 3 chronos or 3 dress watches. On paper, at least, each watch is best suited for its own scenarios, so you're covered for pretty much everything. The weakness, as I see it, is, again, that as a new watch owner, you don't know if you're going to turn into an enthusiast, and there's going to be a watch of those 3 that you select far more often than the others. Statistically speaking, it's probably the sports watch or the diver. That's the one that's going to be significantly more on your wrist than the dress watch. And depending on the chronograph, odds are it's capable of doing exactly what the main sports diver does. Obviously, I'm overgeneralizing a little bit, but people kind of wear the same thing all the time, in the sense that the distance from, some consultants' work attire is not going to be hugely different from their leisure attire. The 3-piece suit guy in the office is likely not a jean short and wife beater guy in his spare time. Odds are there's going to be a Moncler or a Patagonia weekend puffer in that guy's wardrobe. For me, this collection emphasizes theoretical versatility that might never realize itself, and it's pushing variety when the person might never be ready for it. It's the perfect gateway drug collection for the potential future collector, but if it doesn't materialize, you're potentially owning 3 watches, of which 2 you barely ever use. Next collection, beta, daily, and special occasion. This is a little bit of a variation of the previous example. I mean, you get yourself a Casio G-Shock as your beta, your daily as your Aquaterra or your Nomos Club Sport, and finally you've got something fancy for special occasions, something like a Raymond Weil Milsim. In a lot of ways, this collection has more risks than the previous one because labeling a watch as the special occasion watch is setting you up to never use the thing. The last time I was at a christening or a wedding or an anniversary was like a year ago. And, including Christmas, I'm maxing out at like 1 or 2, maybe 3 special occasions throughout a year. Realistically, you're probably already down to 2 watches that are really getting most of the wrist time. The beta is the not at work watch, and the daily is going to be the work and going out watch. That's a pretty good combo, but you have to be a person that's flexible with your personal and work sphere. I've seen people that have their Garmin and their Submariner as their 2 watches. Ostensibly, the Garmin is the beta and the Submariner is the daily. Fact is, when I pay attention, most people have a lean to one or the other, and they don't rotate their watch nearly as much as they would like to. And when they do, sometimes that watch can feel a little bit out of place. But the point is, you don't really have versatility in the sense that each watch is best in one scenario and not as good in the other scenario. Then you can go for same watch, same-ish price, different look. Get yourself a Submariner, Seamaster 300M, and a Glasshoot CQ. It's the same watch style, just different models from different brands. This is a rare starter collection because for this collection to work, you need to be pretty clear on what kind of watch you like. This is for somebody that knows the kind of watch they like and just wants some options. You'd think that this is a bad starter collection, but I'd argue that for a lot of people that end up collecting, this is likely what a lot of their collection is going to look like. I saw a Brit Pierce video the other day, and she's got a lot of different watches, but she says it herself. Sports and divers by far make up the vast majority of her collection and also the watches that make up most of her wrist time. For Adrian Barker, it's Rolexes and tool watches. Every now and again, he talks about a Vacheron Constantin American 1921, the square one. But when push comes to shove, the watch that is going on his wrist is almost always an Explorer 2 or a Seamaster 300M with a white dial. This collection hits the nail on the head for a lot of people in terms of what they likely will end up wearing most of the time. Potentially, there's no wasted space in the collection with, some random dress watch or a quirky watch that they'll never wear. It's just stacking the collection with variants of those, overshirts and hoodies that you really like to wear. But it does need you to already know what kind of watch you like. If you're in doubt whether dress watches are your thing, then getting stuck with 3 dress watches really isn't helping you out other than emptying your pocket. As an enthusiast, maybe it's a little bit sad in the sense that you don't expose yourself to different options and variations, but on the other hand, you're buying what you like. But it is a more limited kind of collection. There's also the brand collection. So get yourself a Cubitus, a 5226, and a 5205. Is this really a thing? Of course it is. Just Google Mark Zuckerberg and watches, and you'll see what he did. I mean, he likely called his personal concierge. Most of us don't have that. And they said, he said to them, buy me every single FP Journe that exists. And by the way, there's also some kind of handmade watch from Grubel Forsey. And then they bought everything for him. But the one brand watch or the one brand watch collection is definitely a thing. It's a perfectly valid way of starting your 3 watch collection. And it's also got its strengths and weaknesses. For me, there are 2 glaring flaws in the model. One is, of course, that you're limiting yourself to one brand as if they are the only brand that are worth looking at. Whether it's 3 Rolexes or 3 Tudors or 3 APs, it's just a really narrow collection. I mean, the watches are going to be different, but stylistically, they're going to be built around a shared theme because that's, how brands work. Now, if you like Rolex as an example and the Oyster case, well, that's super, but there are other designs that have merit that you're never going to enjoy. The second flaw is one of perception, and Zuckerberg, Wahlberg, John Mayer, they're all good examples of this. It feels lazy and not particularly thought through. It might actually be the case that it is thought through, but someone going down to an 80 and saying, get me 3 Cartiers looks and feels a lot more like brand consumerism than actual watch appreciation. Not that you should ever care what other people think, but there's a component to this. The good thing for this model is you get variety, but still you have enough consistency in design that you're likely going to like all 3 watches. I mean, if you like a Submariner's design, then an Explorer 2 and an Oyster Perpetual are likely going to be appealing to you as well. That means you're likely going to like those watches and use all those watches to a large degree. There's not going to be any safe queens or watches that just gather dust because they're relatively interchangeable. You also likely get a good relationship with whoever you bought all the watches from, which over time gives you access to more watches if that's the road you want to go down. How about a Quirky watch, a statement watch, and an understated watch? Go for a Constantine Chaikin Joker, Hublot Big Bang, and a Lange Saxonia. Something quirky, something of a statement, and something a bit more restrained. This isn't the same as having a dress, a diver, and a chrono. This collection, the Quirky collection, the statement collection, is focused on not the situation, but on a state of mind. This collection is for the person that thinks about the impression he or she wants to make. And, if it's going to a burial, you wear the Saxonia. If you're going to a business meeting with creative types, you put on the Joker. And if you're going out with the boys, it's the Big Bang. I can see this collection working because it's so extreme and you really get massive variety. None of these watches really overlap in any scenario. And in a way, they're all statement pieces because thought gets put into what you want to communicate, to who and when. Is it a super common collection? Of course not. But there are people that would love this, and you know who you are, and I do too. You're the one when you agree that you're all going to do like neighborhood Halloween trick-or-treating. You're the one that gets a custom sewn, bespoke Montgomery Burn suit with full mask, makeup, and, the old car as well, where everybody else kind of just shows up in the supermarket Spider-Man one piece made of nylon and bound together by, the tears of a Bangladesh child worker. You're not the kind of person that half-asses it, and you're perfectly aware of what you want to signal and when. And your personality is likely one that takes up space. There aren't a lot of these people out there, but this is about as diverse a collection as you can get. But it appeals to a person that already knows that they are that guy. It's likely a terrible starting point for someone that doesn't want to make a mistake. And also likely introverts probably need not apply. Those to me are the most common 3-watch collection approaches apart from just looking at different price ranges. To me, one thing is clear. No strategy is perfect. If you choose 3 of the same watch, you better be certain that those are the kinds of watches you really like. If you want a mix of watches for different situations, you need to be okay with some of those situations not being that common and you not always using the watches as intended. You can buy all your watches from the same brand as well. It's convenient and you're likely going to like all 3, but what about all those other cool options? I get the desire for options, and I know most of those videos out there are not intended to force you to buy precisely the options that are presented. They're meant to inspire, they're just meant to be fun, they're meant to show you some watches that you as a newbie likely didn't know about. But I do think there's a better way to get to the perfect 3-watch collection. The perfect 3-watch collection starts with you looking for 1 watch. Not 3, but 1. Look for 1 watch in your budget that you like, that appeals to you, that you've maybe researched a bit and have got confidence is a decent watch for the price. Try it on, and when you're sure, buy it and wear that thing for a year or more. Wear it long enough to know how you use it. Take note of when you don't wear it. Take note of whether or not you ever feel it's getting boring to you. Take note of when you wish you could have had and worn something else. Take note of where you felt the watch was out of place. Take note of whether you are constantly babying it because you feel it's too valuable for the situation it's used in. Be mindful of the situations and your reactions and note what the watch is lacking and how often it's lacking. For me, almost all my buying considerations boil down to a need for variety. I enjoy having options and I do think about how my watch and clothes fit together and how they work in a given context. I wouldn't go to a job interview wearing the watch I wore in the Teddy Baldassar video. When I go on vacation, I like having a watch that matches the temperature, the weather, and the activities I'm going to be engaged in. So variety for me is far more important than consistency. That, and I've also got the realization that dress watches just don't get used a lot, so I don't generally spend a lot of money on dress watches. I've got a buddy who has a Submariner, he's got a Speedy and an Aquaterra. They all got black dials. It sounds super boring to me, but to him it's the perfect collection. For him, those 3 watches work anywhere and anytime. They all work in a work setting, all of them are good for the beach, and that's including the Speedy. They're also good for formal events. All are understated and all are good looking. That's what works for him. For me, my first watch was a Tag Heuer Link quartz chronograph. I loved it. It looked cool, but it didn't work that well once I got my first real job because of the blue dial. But I loved the chrono. So my second watch was a Breitling chronomat, and the white dial was the key. The tag was for play, the Breitling was for work. And the watch I got after that was the IWC Portofino chronograph with a black dial. Still a chrono, but it was just that bit more grown up and better in more formal situations. For a long time, those were the three watches that had the variety I was looking for, but they also had a consistency of theme that spoke to me. Variety has always been the key, and I'm not only into chronographs, but when it comes to these chronographs, the Breitling got replaced by Speedy, the Portofino got replaced by an IWC Pilot Chrono, and the tag got replaced by an AP. My collection has evolved, but the needs have essentially stayed the same. I suppose I could keep talking about this, but the key for me is this. Finding the perfect watch is very much a you thing, and your first watch is the starting point. That first watch will tell you a ton about what you like and don't like. That first watch, whichever watch it is, contains most of what you need to know to figure out what your second watch potentially should be. So here's the question for you. What was your first watch? What did you learn from that watch? And which watch did it lead to? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe. Cheers.